Thanks for being with us. Reports say animal shelters are overrun with stray or owner-surrendered pets this year, leading to spiking post-pandemic euthanasia rates across the country. We get more from this weekend's Jennifer Kashenka.
Thinking about adopting a pet or buying one this holiday season? There are many, many things to consider. Joining us now for a deep dive on being a pet parent is Jackie Ducci, founder of the Human Animal Alliance, a nonprofit dedicated to bringing people and animals together. Jackie, what is the status of many shelters around the country right now?
Well, it's really awful, actually. The shelters are overcrowded all across the nation. Euthanasia rates are skyrocketing as well, so it's really at levels that we haven't seen in a very long time, and it's really terrible.
Why is that?
Several reasons. I think the most obvious of which is the country is in economic recession, inflation is soaring, people are just struggling financially. And animals are not cheap. There were studies done recently showing that the average dog, the cost of an average dog per year is $4,500 for their needs. And then for a cat, it's $1,150 a year. So I think a lot of people take on animals and they don't really understand what they're committing to financially. So that's a big thing. Also, emergency medical bills that can just come up that are things that we cannot predict. It happens to all of us that have animals at some time or another. So, a lot of these people, it's really sad, but they love their animals. They're just in a position where they cannot cover those expenses right now.
So if you're considering getting a cat or a dog, should you sit down and kind of list the pros and cons?
I think that's part of it. I also think really giving thought to what the best fit is for your home. If you are somebody that's just not home during the day, you work out of an office and you want a dog, you probably want a pretty low energy dog. If you're a marathon runner, you probably want a high energy dog. Like, these things matter. Or maybe a cat is better than a dog in certain circumstances. So I think, talking to the other people in your household and just getting real about what's going to work for your situation is going to help ensure the long-term fit of that match and that commitment.
We're speaking with Jackie Ducci, founder of the Human Animal Alliance. If you're thinking about gifting a pet this holiday season, what are the concerns about that?
I think it's a terrible idea in general. I just always encourage people to be part of the solution, not the problem. Like, the problem is that there are just too many animals being surrendered. So if that thought isn't being put in on the front end, and someone is just receiving a pet that they didn't even choose, I just think they're way less likely to be committed. And this is why a lot of animals wind up, back in the rescue system. So I would never recommend that unless it's something that, has been discussed and, you want to do it for a friend or something like that. But there's been conversation beforehand and a real reason behind why you're doing it.
Jackie, are there resources for people who need help with paying vet bills or help with pet food?
There are. There are what we call safety net charities that exist around the country. They tend to do a really good job kind of vetting people and giving support where it's truly needed to help animals stay in homes as opposed to being surrendered. So that is something that people can look into. There are food banks and things like that as well. So there are resources. My organization has given a lot of money over the last 2 years to groups like that to help alleviate the burden on people. So there's that for sure.
There also seems to be some degree of impatience with dogs that need to be trained or cats that have some kind of behavioral problem. A lot of animals end up back in the shelter because people just haven't given them time to get adjusted.
That's true. Well, and the other thing that's interesting is, pets were being adopted in droves in 2020 because that was during the pandemic. So everybody was home. But now that they're not home so much, you're seeing, things like separation anxiety in the animals, behavior problems, things like that people weren't dealing with initially. So that is another reason animals are getting surrendered. So that's a big thing is, if you're taking on an animal, you have to be willing to commit the time. A lot of times with training, it's not even the expense, it's the time, because the trainer can tell you what to do, but then you have to follow up at home and teach the animal and be consistent. And some people just aren't, willing or able to do that.
How can you become an animal advocate if you're not in a position to adopt right now?
A huge thing that I am really a proponent of is fostering. Fostering animals helps alleviate the shelters and the rescue groups, and it is not a long-term commitment. So you can bring in an animal for a few weeks, months, whatever, until they get adopted, and it's a great way to see, what works best for your family. If you're on the fence about adopting a foster, you can kind of try it out before committing, and it really helps, like I said, the shelter system too. So I would definitely recommend that.
That's this weekend's Jennifer Koshenka with Jackie Ducci, founder of the Human Animal Alliance.